Hello, day 31. That's 4 weeks, 3 days of counting our Oma. And today we got the 6th and the 8th Sephirot. So the 6th and the 8th, which is Tiferet, the 6th of Hod, the 8th. So we've got Tiferet, which is our kind of like Venusian energy, the heart, really. The centre pillar, you know, with the polarities balanced in a dynamic equilibrium, a dynamic tension. It's the expression of beauty, of truth, or truth of beauty. I think they're interchangeable. Truth is beauty, beauty is truth. That was a quote from someone, I can't remember. And Hod, that's encapsulating the receptive energies. So we've got words and concepts associated with Hod is gratitude, surrender, appreciation, diversity, and it's often called splendor or glory. Yet that's got to be in balance with Netzach. You know, the mastery, victory, resilience, endurance. So Hod is back. Whenever we're talking about one of them on these pillars, we're talking about them kind of paired and into the heart. It's dynamic equilibrium. So we've got Hod, Tiferet of Hod, and it's the path between Hod and Tiferet is the devil. It's our devil card. So we have our 6 of Wands here, you know, and it's often seen as a card of victory. That image of the, you know, the hero, the victor on his white charger. That brings, for me, that brings like the childhood stories of the return of the prince who saved the day. Often because he's got a deep love for this princess. So yeah, Hod, on the other hand, our 8 of Wands, this is the solar plexus, so it's the wheel, the seat of I am, our sovereignty, but it's also Hod, the place of surrender, so it's like a surrender of will. So the question for me in my reflections is, what am I surrendering to? So this 8 of Wands, we can see it as messages being brought, our passions, our creativity. And I said before, the wands in the Tree of Life are in the world of Absolute, which is closest to Source. It's spiritual fire, that it's the as above Source, spiritual fire, and the seat of our will, so below, as above, so below, the fire in our bellies. So that's the kind of reflection of it. So then we can see this 8 of Wands as motion through the immovable, sometimes our will, often our immovable will. And for me, I was kind of thinking it reflected those words of Rumi. Where is it? I've got it in my notes somewhere. Yeah, your task is not to seek for love, Tiferet, but merely to seek and find all the barriers within yourself that you've built against it. So where in the seat of our will we're kind of resistant, we've got an immovable will. So yeah, it kind of conjures up that for me. So hence the path from Hod to Tiferet is the devil. So on this card we've got the inverted pentagram. So looking at it from that respect, it's an image of inversion. So change to the lower nature. So if we're chained like that, we can see this Six of Wands as a card of victory, but victory of the small self, you know, victory of the ego. And you can kind of see it as a picture, like, see all the people, I think you can see it there, but yeah, like the war parade, the homecoming, you know, when they return with spoils after the slaughter. And yeah, I was thinking, kind of thinking fairy tales, but I was also thinking of the Crusades, you know, and the Crusaders who went out to Jerusalem, they began with that kind of spiritual heart, a compassion, wanting to defend and protect the pilgrims on their way to the Holy Lands. But in fact, I mean, history shows they slaughtered all the people who lived in that land. So they were chained to a lower nature, chained to that material, mental picture of victory. And that energy is still there in the Middle East. You know, the divide and conquer, that's the shadow of this Tiferet and Hod. So it's not, you know, Hod is diversity, appreciation. It's not an appreciation of diversity in that respect, with a balance of compassion for the Tiferet. You know, it's that out of balance Tiferet and Hod. It's victory in kind of repression, really. And that shadow of the pairing, it's seen throughout the world, you know, in the form of wars, holy wars, that masculine, unbalanced, outgoing Netzach tied to a material inversion. You know, and we're all part of this. We aren't separate from it. If we're believing ultimately that we're, you know, we have a unity of consciousness, that we're all one, then when one suffers, we all suffer. So when there's that victory, so-called victory, you know, that is the slaughter of people to get their lands or their oil or whatever, we're all part of that. We're all, you know, there are people suffering in that. And then when we bring it from that macro level of global down to the micro, we can see, you know, see this energy again, both the balanced energy and the imbalance. You know, we can start with a heart of love in our work, in our families, in our projects, community, whatever it is. You know, and then lose, like the Crusaders did, lose that focus of love when our egos rise, this material. You know, we can start off with this compassionate project, or a project that wants to, you know, help others in any way, or contribute something really good to society, and then, you know, we get faced with challenges, what seems like the immovable, this Eight of Wands immovable, and, you know, our egos can come up. You know, we can develop like group echo chambers, you know, mentally, when there's diverse voices that don't agree with us. And then we can splinter into opposing groups and forget the beauty, Tiferet, of diversity, which is, you know, there are many messages from many people, many opinions. So, yeah, we can lose that compassionate heart that helps us hold that dynamic tension of polarity in your heart. And it's like when our passion for spiritual and physical oneness you know, that unity consciousness gives way to this lower egoic need to be right, or maybe be more popular or have more of a following, you know, anything like that. We, you know, when our ego becomes bigger, we get chained to that lower nature, the inversion of the material. But then we can take these chains off. Those chains are loose. They're not, you know, they fit over their heads by the looks of it. But to do that, we got to allow ourselves to acknowledge that we got chains there. So we got to see that part of ourselves. And then we can get on our horse, and you have to have balance to ride a horse. And you can move, you know, the movement and action, and continue to have that vision, that source vision, and have that will to express divine love through us. It's a kind of surrender to a greater vision. So if you see any of those traits, I mean, ask yourself honestly, you know, how you feel. Are you triggered by challenge? Are you triggered when people disagree? Are you triggered when you're around people with opposing views, you know? But if you see any of those traits, like I said a while back in that, you know, your creatures of the deep, just acknowledge them, embrace them, they're in you, you know. And there's a law in quantum physics, I think they found it in the slit experiment, that says when something is consciously observed, it changes. But we can't observe that unless we really look. I think that's kind of what I was saying. So yeah, they were my reflections. So it's kind of looking at diversity, looking at what's immovable in us, because this wands is, you know, movement through what seems immovable, and that, you know, Hod, our will, is sometimes, I mean, I'm stubborn. I know for me, my will sometimes needs that massive tower moment. And I mean, just to say, you know, we've got Hod of Netzach, that's the tower. This is the heart. You've got Hod of Netzach, you've got the tower. Hod to the heart, you've got the devil. Netzach to the heart is death. So it's the tower, the devil and death. So what does that tell us about the passage to our hearts? You know, Hod is surrender. It's surrender to beauty and truth. And sometimes that beauty and truth kind of challenges our lower nature. Just how it is. That's how the world is. And, you know, our path is to learn to hold that dynamic tension, to observe it in us and observe it in the world. It gives us the compassion. Then we don't see people, you know, when they're kind of in opposition to us, we can see them with compassion, because we know it's a struggle we all go through. And the same on the global level, you know. We shouldn't turn our face around from what's happening in places like Yemen and, you know, wherever in the world where there's that level of suffering, because we're all one, and that is happening to them, but in a sense it's happening to us. We're all part of that unity consciousness. So yeah, then I randomly pulled out my Rumi deck, and I got number 5, I surge on the uprising wave of love. And this card kind of talks about cosmic energies. It specifically talks about the moon, you know, and the way the moon pulls the tides, you know, but it's talking about cosmic energies outside of our control. So kind of acknowledging and surrendering and working with the cycles. You know, laws of the Russian doll, I was talking about the cosmic laws, you know, and the energies there. We're kind of being moved by life itself, you know, all those energies. And from, you know, with wands, it's absolute, it's coming down from source. So I read a little bit out of the Rumi book, what it says. I read Rumi's words, and then there's a little bit on actually in the writing of the Oracle. It's I love this. He's so good, Rumi. My life can be summed up in 3 accounts. I was raw, I was cooked, and I was burned. And then he says, I surge on the uprising wave of love. No gravity can stop me from rising. The moon pulls the tide of life towards her, and my soul in oneness with all of life answers her call. A wave of love consumes me, and upwards I fly, flying through water to greet her shining body. Led by my heart, my wits are addled, and my mind becomes a blurry mess. And so I feel instead, feel the truth of her love and the divine reflection she shines back at me from her radiant heart. And the Oracle book is saying what we always have at our disposal is choice as to how we respond to these affecting movements and cycles. So, you know, not just the cosmic cycles, but the cycles in our work that I was talking about, you know, when we're challenged, when challenge comes, when our will seems immovable. The effect of this karmic cycle now unfolding in your life is to bring you a sweet surrender and awakening into a greater love. However, even if we sense at one level that a shift has a positive end in store for us, we can encounter resistance and fear born of the ego, the devil, the lower nature, and in response to the stirring of a spiritual uprising. Yeah, so I think that goes back to that kind of sentiment of the tower, you know, these tower moments that's between Hod and Netzach. They come because it's almost like that surge of love, that spiritual surge coming down and emanating out of us. It will bring things down. It will bring tower moments that bring us challenge. So yeah, they were the reflections. I will pull us a random chakra card. I haven't sorted them into solar plexus and heart. I'll just pull this complete random one from it. See what else wants to come through. Okay. Love. Yeah. That needs to be Tiferet love. You know, I surge on the uprising wave of love. You know, our egos love themselves. They don't want, I mean, I said before, I don't believe in getting rid of your ego, because a healthy ego, a balanced ego, is essential for outward energy, you know, to have goals, to have you know, that fire to kind of push yourself forward. But I do believe in a surrendered ego. You know, ego should be our servant, not our master. We're meant to master Netzach, our ego. So yeah, the love, and the only way we can do that is by having that higher sense of love, the diversity, you know, to be able to embrace the whole and keep that as our focus, you know, the love of a unity of us all in our diversity, in our diverse opinions and ways of being. Yeah, it's quite a challenge because, you know, I'll pull us some message cards. There's yeah, it's a difficult one because it's very hard to embrace opinions that are so contrary to your own. But I find if I look at it, you know, not you're right, I'm wrong, but wow, there's so much I don't understand, I'll just hold that. If I don't agree with an opinion, unless it's an opinion that is, you know, clearly, you know, like let's kill people to reduce the population, you know, to help nature, are ridiculous. But otherwise, I'll hold it. I've got this kind of blank page thing, not as in I don't think, I use my mind a lot, but as in just because I don't agree or I don't understand a diverse opinion, I also know that there's mass diversity and a mass diversity of opinions, concepts, thoughts, ideas. So I'll hold it, you know, eventually it disappears if nothing comes up in me in terms of validating that. But sometimes further down the line I understand what their opinion was or where they were coming from, yeah, if that makes sense. So, oh, that wants to come out. Beautiful artwork. Let me see that. Yeah, it's lovely. It's dew on plants. Yeah, develop awe and reverence for life. Yeah. Awe is Gebera, you know. Reverence is our Hod. It's you know, having an awe for the splendour and the beauty of life, and that includes people and diversity in people, you know. I think it's incredible, you know, how many ideas there are out in the world. And I'll put us one more message card. Yeah, awe and reverence. You can get that from nature, you know, this I surge on the uprising wave of love, you know, you start looking at the cosmos and, oh, what's out there, and the energetics of it all. Okay, into your artwork. Yeah, blue flame, connect to the blue flame, which is the light of pure love within you. Yeah, they kind of say it, these messages, develop awe and reverence for all of life and connect with the light of pure love within you. So there you go. Hope you enjoyed. Lots of love and see you tomorrow.